Holiday's over, but we are still in a brewer's paradise, so let's check it out. Hey guys, welcome back to Casting Comments, the show where we talk and discuss all things Pauper. I am your host, Teasdale, and this is my co-host, the Thraben Charm himself, Reese.
Hello.
Before we start, do not forget to hit that like, subscribe, and follow button so you never miss an upload. It also helps the algorithm and gets us some great exposure and a really great way to support us for absolutely free. Look at that. Honestly, it's like I haven't been away. Like, seamless in every single way. So, Paul, what have I missed and what have you been up to?
Honestly, not a huge amount on the Pauper front. Hopefully that should change in August when our local Pauper scene goes back and the league starts again. I did try and play last week's Sunday challenge. I was actually free for once on a Sunday. But obviously, no my luck. The only Sunday I'm free, the challenge didn't fire. Apparently there was some football match on or something, so people wanted to watch that instead.
Just like the Euros final, but it's all good.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to play some white weenie. Other than that, I've just been playing other formats. We had like a couple of small Pioneer and Modern events. It's fine. It's magic. They're not particularly interesting. I played Phoenix in Pioneer, which just seemed to be like easily better than every other deck in the format. Like, not even close. And then I played Affinity in Modern, as I've always played Affinity in Modern since Modern began. It felt like a very ropey choice. It didn't feel good at all. Like the power level of Modern with all the Modern Horizons cards and the Lord of the Rings stuff is just like Affinity is nowhere near to that power level anymore.
You get Urza Saga, stop complaining.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very slow card. Especially when you're playing against decks that are like playing a one ring and then like looping it every single turn. You're just like looking at all your 7 mana 4/4s, like, yes, I can definitely interact with this game plan.
That's what you need. You need your own one ring, clearly. That's an artifact.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, it was fine. It was magic. I am definitely looking forward to get back to playing Pauper next week, though.
The greatest format of all time.
I actually think there is a Pauper this week on Wednesday. So that, yeah, just get me back playing Pauper. I've played enough Modern. One game of Modern was enough.
I do keep thinking of trying like Modern and Pioneer, but I can never ever find a deck I like. Like,
yeah,
I've thought about trying. Is it Amelia? Is that the thing? Like,
yeah.
In Pioneer, I was like, all right, okay, this sounds fun. Like, it looks like my kind of combo deck. You know, these creaturey combo stuff with Coco and Cordicon or whatever it is. And I'm like, I'm up for this. I'm up for this. And then it's like, yeah, everyone's like, yeah, it's boring to play. It's the target. And I'm like, I can't be bothered with that. If it's mainstream, I am not interested.
Yeah, I think it's a tough one really because Pioneer's so like condensed deck wise. There's not that much room for interesting decks, and like so all the games just feel the same.
Oh.
And then Modern used to be like really sweet, and it used to be quite a good and easy format to get into. But now it's like buying into Legacy, like that same price level.
Well,
it's just nuts. And then all the decks are that powerful. Like, you can buy into a deck like the Ruby Storm deck that's just come out, and then it's just not good enough to compete. Like, it just gets absolutely stomped. So it's a weird one.
Seems like a very odd one. I'll stick to Pauper. Sounds balanced.
It sounds wise. What have you been up to?
I've been sunning it up. I haven't really done much, to be fair. But I guess to touch on before I went away, I was away for just under 2 weeks. So I had to jam basically 3 weeks worth of recording in 1 week, which was the most stressful I think I've ever tried to jam content for. And that was definitely, I almost felt like I needed a holiday after I'd finished recording. Like, I was like planning out my decks. Like, bearing in mind, half the time when I record, I usually, when I have like the evening or afternoon or whatever I am recording, I record and I open my computer, open Magic Online, and then I decide what deck I'm going to play. generally. I usually wing it on the day. I don't plan it like weeks in advance. I don't like, right, on this Thursday, 6 weeks down the line, I'm going to play this deck. Usually, I'll probably go to bed or be on the toilet writing a deck list up, and I'll wake up the next day and I'll be like, right, I'm going to play this deck. This deck seems cool. That is generally how it goes. But because I had to like plan everything out, and I was like, right, Monday I'm recording for this, and this is uploading this, and I'm like, oh my God. But we got there, I think. I actually did miss one day because I couldn't fit it all in. But we got there, and we're back. And while I've been on holiday, I've been the routine of sitting on the toilet, lying in bed, brewing still was there. So I just brewed loads of decks, like text decks. So I had like tokens. I'd got Jund tokens, mono green tokens, green black tokens. I've brewed up like mono red Ponza. Yeah. So I've got some spicy brews coming.
I actually seen a mono red Ponza list the other day. It looked quite interesting.
I seen it on there, which was weird because I seen it when I come back off holiday on the Pauper subreddit, I think it was, with like
probably where I seen it.
Rite of Flames and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I was like, that's not the way I went, but this is pretty cool. I was like,
It's been really cool, to be fair, while you've been away, seeing your videos obviously still uploading, but you've just like switched into like a combo man. There was just so much like random combo decks coming. I was like, yeah, this is class. Like oops all spells and all that type of stuff. It was good to see.
Yeah, I think to be fair, there was just so little blue. Like when I was like 3 weeks ago or whatever, I was just like, I'm gonna jam some combo. There's no blue. Just see what happens. And yeah, it was fun.
I think it's a pretty good display of like how open Pauper is at the moment as well for like brew and potential. Like you're playing all these fringe, like even zombies and stuff like that. Playing all these fringe like brew piles and still being able to compete really well.
I was really impressed with zombies. That's why I played it twice. It like genuinely like really impressed me. It's obviously it's not up there with super engine power level stuff, but it's like its synergy is like pretty good. And I'm like, oh, this is pretty impressive. Like some decks just can't beat. Like as Cold Author has shown, some decks just can't beat. Here's 3/1/1s, and I'm just gonna keep getting that value with like the whole Nested Chambler Nameless Inversion sort of thing, and then Ghoul Callers chanting both of them back. Like that sort of synergy or engine you've got going on is like that's surprisingly strong against some decks. Like they just can't beat the Squirrel Army. So just in time for Bloomborough as well, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much it. Would you like to move on to some news?
Yeah, go for it.
So, tournament news. The Badger event did go ahead. We are covering that today. It's the last event I think we're covering. So that is that. And that was the first English IPT qualifier thing for Paupergeddon. Which is pretty exciting. And there's no other mainstream events that we actually want to push. If you do want to check out other events, because there is a lot of them that are firing Pauper ones in the UK, we do highly recommend checking out Pauper Dan on Twitter, as he does just retweet them like crazy. Otherwise, we'd be here all day.
I think he just retweeted. There's one in Stockport coming up. I think it's on the 10th. But that looked like a decent one if anyone's around that area.
Yeah. In other news, the deck lists are back. The given update, I think, was it the Tuesday or something after the week after that. Basically, there's something going on. I don't actually know what there is, but for a quick fix, they'll what's the word I'm looking for? They will show the previous ones while they've been going, so you can check back the ones that we worked tirelessly to get all the data for without any deck lists. You can check those out and fact check us, tell us how wrong we were, if you'd like. But they are also only showing the top 32, so it's like pre-Daybreak taking over. They'll only show like the top 32 deck lists, which is a shame, but at least it's better than nothing.
Yeah, I wonder how much or if it's had anything to do with Wizards just being like, yeah, we don't want all this data out anymore. Because that was always their excuse for only showing like top 32 is they didn't want that level of data. And then as soon as Daybreak do it, like after a while, it just goes back to top 32.
But the weird thing is, though, I think they're still doing the league thing, right? It's still every league deck, so which is again is really odd. Such an odd thing to do, but it's all good. because regarding the actual deck, the players and what deck they chose and matchup stuff, if I'm sure Kirby can still get in, see them all. So like you can check out all them deck list stuff, Kirblinxy as well.
Top 32 is still solid as well, to be fair. It's the main point of information we end up focusing on.
I'm just casually dying there.
It's not a huge loss, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. And moving on, we have had, since we've been away, we've had a Nationals update for the Pauper UK Nationals. It has a date, which is the 30th of November. I had to correct myself in my head there. We've also got a location, which is Sheffield Patriot Games in Sheffield. And there's still a lot of things for Dan, obviously, the one-man army that he is, trying to make this event happen. There's still a lot of things for him to cover, like, obviously, playmat art, playmats in general, obviously, potential of streaming and casting and things like that. He covers it all in his video, and it's a great watch. I highly recommend listening to it and watching it. We will link it in the description so you can all keep up to date, because we are the number one source for UK Pauper. That is why. Self-proclaimed, of course. And that is pretty much it. The only other news for me, which I have missed dearly, is Kalikaiz or Satan Rakin's Trophy Tuesdays are back. With Decklist come back, you're starting them on Tuesday this week. I think it's a Tuesday the 23rd, I think it is.
Yeah.
So it'll be good to have them back, which is going to be quite good to see, because the leagues, I've been checking out the league lists since they've been back, and there is always some spicy ones, which we'll sort of touch on later down on one of the Brewers Paradise challenges, where that deck sort of started as a League 5-0 and stuff. So yeah, pretty cool to see.
Yeah, I think, to be fair, with the amount of brewing, like we'll see down here, it's definitely a good time to be doing stuff like that.
You say that, but I can't do any better than a 3-2 with my brews. So my brewing must be shocking.
Have to try hard.
That's what it is. We'd like to move on to the challenges. We have 3 usual challenges and the showcase qualifier, and then also the IPT Badger event as well.
Yeah. So the Friday challenge is the first one, which is obviously a 32 challenge on Friday the 19th of July. 66 players, so really good turnout. First place was Black Green Gardens, second was Mono Blue Terror, third was White Weenie, fourth was Grixis Affinity, fifth was another copy of Gardens, sixth was the Green Black Brute Scale or Green Black Glee combo, seventh was White Weenie, and eighth was Grixis Affinity. And then the 2 near misses, ninth, another copy of White Weenie, and 10th, another copy of Black Green Brute Scale. So I think my initial thoughts on this is obviously a really good show for White Weenie. Like, to have 3 in the top 10 is something we haven't seen in a long time from White Weenie. It's like sort of an outlier, occasional gets 1 in every now and then. But yeah, a really big or really good showing from White Weenie. The White Weenie lists seem to have updated quite a bit as well. Cutting Lands, playing Eagles of the North. They've gone back to Lunark Veteran as well in the main. But I think the biggest boost they've had in general is from Fraven Charm. The card's just like ridiculously good, especially if you can play it and utilize it in the main deck as efficiently as a deck like White Weenie can, where the removal mode essentially kills anything, and then you've just got built-in graveyard hit against Terror and other graveyard decks and built-in enchantment removal. And especially when a lot of the better decks at the moment are either playing enchantments like the Brute Scale combo, or utilising the graveyard like Grixis Affinity and Terror, and all playing creature win cons that you can kill at instant speed. Definitely seemed like a really good time to be on White Weenie.
Yeah, 100%. Well, the one thing that we haven't covered them for quite a while, but last week, the 13th, Kirblinxy won the Saturday challenge with White Weenie, as he was expecting, because Red had taken an uptick from the week before, from obviously trying to beat all the Ponza up, and then also had the what was the other deck that they were trying to beat? Affinity as well. So there was his expectations was there was a lot of red and a lot of Affinity last week, and that seemed to be the case. And obviously White Weenie's a great deck for that.
Yeah,
especially
and then
with
Thread and Charm fills the gaps.
And then Thread and Charm exactly fills the gaps and end up splitting that, and then that sort of seems to follow through with the sort of metagame where obviously now White Weenie. So the Friday was the third. White Weenie was the third most played deck, and it seems to be a great, like a well positioned deck now. That now obviously Thraben Charm's an incredible instant speed cast down, effectively for White Weenie, or as close as you're gonna get it really. And then also, as you say, you've got the efficient threats, the go wide. You've got the Lunark veterans for any life gain. Obviously, Thraben Charm basically deals with a lot of different stuff, and it's just a really well-rounded, really powerful aggro deck.
Yeah,
that's not
really
broken,
nice to see. Yeah. It's very, very fair deck. But it's nice to see such a, I guess, historic deck to Pauper still being able to compete at like the top level as well. It's obviously changed a lot from when it sort of was first introduced, but it's still got like the Strands, the Guardian's Pledge, the Battle Screech, Core Skyfisher. It's still like got a lot of the same core. But yeah, it is really cool to see that still going strong.
Yeah, 100%. Definitely a strong deck, and I really do like the whole Eagle and North sort of cutting on lands, because if you do end up getting flooded with or without the Eagle and North, having the other ones in you, a really powerful effect to have. Like obviously +1/+0 is definitely a strong effect to have. For sure.
Yeah, I played some games with it the other day, and I was impressed by how strong that effect was. Like it lets you get through so much, like blockers, and just makes all the opponents block so bad. And obviously being able to cut lands is always ideal if you can. Other than that, the Grixis affinity lists have both, I believe, cut Snacker, which from my perspective is nice to see, because I feel like that's where affinity should be going. The Snacker just seems like it's so bad to cast in that deck, and it's so difficult to discard. It always just seems really awkward. Like the engine's good when you get it going, like if it's blocking or if you're sacking it to ping or to draw cards is really good. But just the starting of that engine in Affinity in particular is just dead awkward.
Yeah, 100%. I do think that majority of them are pretty much like they are in agreement that they are generally cutting them. So I think I'm totally fine with that, especially when it eats up a lot of your flex slots to kind of run it.
Yeah.
And I sort of covered this in a video I recorded recently, to be fair, which to me, the big pull for Affinity at the moment is because lists are literally maybe 10 cards different, and those 10 cards, the power level of each 10 cards it could be are so strong. Like it could be Metallic Rebuke, it could be Cast Down instead of like Galv Blast, it could be more Galv Blasts, it could be Candy Trails, it could be Spell Bombs in the main. Like literally you could have extra Crackland Shamans, you could have Kenku, you could not have Kenku.
Yeah.
Like the strength in all these different lists and the power level of these cards are absolutely game breaking. And then in putting a blue-black 2/1 flyer that is fine, like it's not bad, obviously, but it's not as game breaking and as meta defined, like as matchup shifting as the rest of those cards. Like you lose as soon as you see Snacker, I'm like, all right, okay, I know pretty much most of the list now because your flex slots are down. You're gonna be running maybe one, maybe two cast downs. But as soon as you know that these like sneaky snaggers aren't in the deck, it could be literally anything. The amount of times you get blown out by there's a main deck spell bomb that I didn't know because you get blown out by a Kenku or a cast down, or do you know what I mean? Like these. So I'm happy that they're gone because it makes the deck a lot better in a sense, but it also makes it harder to play around as well. You have to play around more cards that are actually in the deck half the time.
Yeah. And then I guess my last comment is just how interesting it is to see how different the two green black brood scale lists are. They're just like completely different lists, but both the same colours, both sort of aiming for this combo. One of them runs 19 creatures, the other one runs 7. Like they're just not anywhere close to each other than this 4 brood scale, 4 Glee.
For Rumble as well. Can't go wrong with
Yeah.
those.
That card is definitely overperforming. It's really good.
But yeah, I definitely agree. And I think the thing for me, there's definitely two lists of brood scale at the moment. There's the Jund one, which most people know now, like the KCS Wildfire Writhing Chrysalis list. Generally, I must admit, there's probably two cards different between any list I've ever seen. Like
The
it's
Jund ones,
the
yeah,
Jund
yeah.
one, but the green black one, like the difference between lists is absolutely insane. And it's not even like
Mm.
a bad, like I don't even think any of these lists are bad or good. Like I've played not exact lists, but both very similar lists. Like I played Bloodright Invoker as a win con, 7 creatures, all that sort of stuff. And I've played the Slitherhead Rhythm one that Campo's playing, and they both play really, really well. And both very different in their own right.
Mm.
Super interesting. The only thing that I really do find strange is the Season of the Mists list has 2 Implement of Ferocity and then no Evolution Witness. And I just find
Mm.
that, like, I know it's fine, obviously helping with um Brood Scale, like just you play it and you can use it to sacrifice, or you can just pay green and set off your Brood Scale combo.
Yeah.
Like I get it, but it just feels really wrong.
It's only a slight discount on the Brood Skull as well, because obviously
Uh,
you can just adapt it for 2.
mm,
So you have to already play this
mm-hmm.
and then have just 1 mana up when you're trying to Brood Skull and Glay, I guess. Yeah, I can see it being fine, but I do agree that a witness makes it a lot stronger.
Mm. The only thing as well that I don't really understand, but I don't think I'll ever understand really, is the foreboding landscape. I know
Yeah.
it's really, really minor, but like, why play the bug one over the Jund one? Like, it literally
Oh,
means
pretend you're Jund.
yeah, like pretend you're Jund.
Mm.
Like, what you're pretending here, like turn one foreboding landscape. Oh, they're playing walls. Like, like no one's believing that.
Yeah. Yeah, true.
But
Yeah, that's fair.
it's only very, very minor. But it's you know, I looked at it, I was like, what? Which one's the foreboding landscape? That's not the Jund one. And I looked and I was like, oh, okay. But yeah, lists look sweet. I like both the lists. I like the ones with the refractor in. I like anywhere in between these lists. You can't go too far wrong. To be fair, I really do like the green black Glee combo. I do like the Campo's edition of a Curse Marauder in the main. His original 5-0 list had 4 in, and then 0 Mezfiends in the main, but as in the challenge cut that 3 and 1. And I really do like it because it works really well with the Rubble Belt Slitherhead sort of engine. You could literally go Slitherhead or Maverick on 1, Marauder on 2, and then you can actually then just combo on 3 with Slitherhead. Well, mainly with Slitherhead, but
Especially, it's nice with the unearths as well.
yeah.
Especially as we'll see, like with Terra doing so well
Mm.
in the later challenges, it seems like a decent card to be on.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the cards generally, I did in pretty much every green black version sideboard, and I think I bought it in most games. And I'm not surprised it's been put in the main deck, to be honest.
And then I guess before we move on, shout out to Weber for just missing out on the top 10 coming 11th. PFP represent. Saturday challenge.
Yeah, far away.
Slightly less players on the Saturday, only 59. First place was Mono Blue Terror. Second place was Turbo Fog. Third was Ponzolus, or Red Green Monsters, unsure what we're calling it. Fourth was Blue Black Terror. Fifth and sixth were both Mono Blue Terror. Seventh was Mono Black Gardens. And eighth was another Black Green Gardens. And then the near misses, ninth was Black Green Gardens, and 10th was another copy of Turbo Fog. So completely different from the Friday results. Obviously a really good showing for Terra. Just come back from basically being absolutely nowhere to being one of the best decks again with a triple or quad top 8. But triple mono blue. I definitely wouldn't have thought that would be the case going into the event.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think to me it looks like it's very much a rock paper scissorsy whatever's done well the previous events kind of, getting slowly hated out. It's the same with, I think, why Turbo Fog's making an appearance.
Yeah.
You've got Gardens as well making like a massive resurgence. And it's just like, oh, look, this is good against this. Okay, now we play this. And then it just slowly is rotating around. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah. I think Gardens, as you say, it sort of picked back up again when Brute Scale became a deck, because it seems like a really decent answer to that deck with all the pinpoint removal.
Mm-hmm.
And then, as you say, Turbo Fog is like a pretty hard counter to White Weenie. But yeah, a really interesting one. Sweet to see the Ponzolus deck become a thing as well. I feel like we had a hot take like a few weeks ago that Ponzo was going to drop its land destruction and run like this big just jam creatures package. And that's basically what ended up happening here. There's also 2 you meet in a tavern, which is like the Lead the Stampede that also gives +2/+2 as a different mod, which is an interesting call for like a 2 of in this deck. I'm not sure how needed it is, or if there's a better card you could put in there, but
yeah, I really don't know how I feel about this card in this deck. It is interesting because you do end up with a lot of like Eldrazi spawns, so I get the whole +2/+2. Like I sort of get it, but it's also not an overrun. So like you can get to a point where you have this Writhing Chrysalis that's absolutely huge, and all you're doing is basically just making them block for an eternity. And like, given trample is probably more important, I would say, than giving your spawns +2/+2 maybe. But I could be wrong. Yeah. I don't know. But I don't mind the whole lead effect plus. You've got the mana for it generally. Like the 4 mana, the difference between 3 and 4 mana doesn't really matter in this deck.
So, yeah, I'm with cutting. Obviously, the Ponza effects you are super high on creatures. You've 29 creatures in this list. Like cascading into it's pretty good. Just as like a sort of a draw 2, draw 3. Yeah, interesting way to take it. It's not a card I would have thought about putting in the deck.
No.
But I can see sort of why you come to that conclusion.
I think my only thought is, I think if you're gonna run like Ponzolus, like trying to find something that can help clear the way or get your guys through / remove awkward guys, like finding I don't know how maybe trying to see if there's like a split spell that's sort of like sort of this, like a choose one that's get you more guys plus also buff your guys, but instead of being that more draw a card or, I don't know, remove something, do you know what I mean? Like that's maybe slightly more expensive and doesn't see play because of that. And that might be where you want to take it, because obviously I know like there's a lot of like Brood Scale combo decks that'll just jam because they know no matter what version you're running, it's just like you're not removing anything. You've got no removing.
Yeah, especially now Scred's sort of falling out of favour. Obviously still playing the snow covers to pretend like you could be on Scred, but my initial thought was something like Rancor. But it just seems really bad to cascade into, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, trying to find something that's goodish to cascade into that also does what you want it to do if you don't.
Yeah.
But
yeah, interesting.
I do think a lot of decks are adapting to Ponza. The landscape's a really good sort of pseudo counter to Ponza, like what, and then obviously you've got the bridges as well as a natural sort of or just being generally aggressive. Good counters to the Ponza effect. So I do get the idea of going Ponzolus. And I do like the idea. I just think trying to fill those slots with more creatures and also something that helps better than you meet in a tavern. I just don't think that card's it. But it's a good first basher for me, the Ponzolus.
Yeah, it'll be cool to see where this deck sort of develops. Because, like you say, it's good to be able to have basically all the best red-green threats in Pauper and not have to worry about like half your deck just being nerfed by bridges.
Like another thing here for me, like just again another small point, like you meet if you made a decision to put your meet in a tavern in your deck, like why not then put Jewel Thief in your deck over Repurpose? So like you don't need the extra spawns. Like the spawns for Chrysalis is like, it's more you're going wide more than trample. I would prefer the trample over the going wide, if you know what I mean. Like I know you get +4/+4 off Repurposer, but you have infinite big guys. Like, you probably just want trample on all your guys. I don't know. It just seems really strange to me.
Yeah, I guess it's sort of split that. Like, the repurposes 2 guys to get buffed, but the dual thief's 1 guy, but he gets trample. Obviously, you do have a lot of guys. Not a lot of guys. You have a few guys that already have trample with the Altasaur and the Avenging Hunter.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do see what you mean. I think, that was why Rancor was really my initial thought. But I think a lot of obviously it's recursive, so as long as you've got like an Arbor Elf there, you're gonna get it back. But it doesn't seem ideal. Like I guess like your meeting a tavern doesn't seem ideal, but your meeting a tavern probably has a bigger upside.
Yeah, I guess maybe the Dread Mask is probably the best you've got, but then again, it's not ideal. But it is interesting.
Just another bomb.
Just another bomb. All you need is more bombs. Well, pretty sweet, you see. My other thing on the campfire-y mono black gardens, where's that list gone?
The 7th place one.
The 7th place list is
it's sort of mono black. It's got red and green cards in the sideboard, but it just is mono black in the main. So I was unsure how to differentiate that one.
It seems pretty much like, it's like a mono black like gardens / campfire gardensy thing with the sideboard's pretty sweet. I really like the idea of the Trespasser's Curse. Obviously a nod to the Glee combo as well as other things, but which is pretty interesting. And it's the only thing for me is that the Trespasser's Curse is you don't want to rely too much on it because there is ways that they can get around it. But yeah, for sure it's a good card to sort of stop them while they're digging and all that sort of stuff. But definitely a good card. Like if you do expect quite a lot of Glee combo in your area or in an event or whatever, it's definitely a good card to have, consider and grab a hold of. That was my main thing. Was the sideboard looked pretty sweet, and I'm still not a big fan of the whole no win cons. I'm gonna crit rats you out, but you know, each to their own.
It's a bold one.
But
I guess sort of my last things is the mono blue terror lists at the moment are actually looking quite interesting. They've got a few new tools. One of the main ones has been Deem Inferior, from Modern Horizons, which is a 4-mana. The owner of target non-permanent puts it into their library, second from the top or on the bottom. But it costs 1 less for each card you've drawn this turn, so you can cast it for a single blue if you like Brainstorm. Seems like just a very decent answer for basically anything. Especially in a deck with so many just cantrips, you can like cast it for 2 like a boomerang quite a lot. And yeah, the what's the other card? Artful Dodge seems to be coming back a bit as well.
Yeah. The one card that I seen in some of the list, there was one in the Friday and one here in the 6th place list, was the Out of Air.
Oh yeah.
Which is definitely an interesting card that I'm unsure on where to think about this card. Like, there's one in the main, one in the side here, and it's a 2 and 2 blue counter target spell, so it's 4-mana counter spell, but it costs 2 less if this spell casts targets a creature spell. So it's effectively like a blue essence scatter, or is it Deprive? Is that the name? Is the
no, Deprive's just counter spell. But you bounce land. But yeah, it's essence scatter essentially, because this deck has only islands, so it's just always essence scatter. But it scales much better in late game because you can just eventually just counter anything.
Yeah.
I think if you want to run an essence scatter, it makes sense in this deck that this is the essence scatter you run. I'm just not sure how much you want to run essence scatter. Interestingly, this list in particular also has 4 disrupts in, which is another just really it's a 4 spike essentially that can only target instant or sorceries, but you draw a card,
which is a fairly interesting one, to be fair, because there's a lot of it's a very strange one in my head because there's a lot of non-instant sorcery spells you do want to counter quite a lot of the time, but then in the early turns there's also quite a lot when you like. There's a lot of instant and sorcery / setup spells that you just want to counter all the time. So it's like even if you just make them pay one more for it and draw a card, like I get it, but I don't. It is exactly as you say. I don't know how much you want that effect.
Yeah. It's bold to run it as a 4 of.
Yeah.
Just like I 100% want this all the time. Especially when stuff like Force Spike, when it is in these decks, is like a 1 or a 2 of.
Yeah, so like the 5th place list runs 2 Force Spikes, and 2 Spell Pierce as the sort of.
Yeah, so you're basically cutting all of those and playing 4 Disrupts as well, and just being like, I can only hit instants or sorceries. I can't hit artifacts or anything else like Force Spike them.
Like, if to me it seems like very much like a good one if in the early turns or even like on the draw, for example, you're against Ponza and you're like Island go, and then they just try and thermocast you, and you're like, you can't pay for this. I'll draw a card. Like I get like that sort of scenario. It sounds great, but then there's so many scenarios where you're like, why this card's just bad.
But, yeah, its upside is really good. Its downside is also really big.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird one. The 6th place list, especially, is a very odd mono blue terror list. But it sort of just shows that mono blue terror with just 4 mental nodes, 4 thought scholars, 4 counter spells, and then your terrors, your delvers, and your cryptic servants. Like, just that core is so strong. You can mess about with all the instants and sorceries supporting that. And as long as they're sort of on theme, like counter spells or cantrips, it sort of just works.
Yeah, but other than that, the list seemed pretty interesting. Like as I say, like the 1st place list with 4 Demon Fury, as we've sort of touched on. There's the Disrupts, there's the Out of Airs, there's definitely some interesting choices for the mono blue decks. Like some have gone back to Boomerang and such. And then you've got the blue black deck, which looks like it was the same it's been for like 3 years.
Yeah. I think the 1st place list as well is Run and Ponder, which is sort of a bit of a weird one for mono blue terror. It normally doesn't run like the sorcery speed cantrips. It's usually on like Consider instead of Ponder, or Ponder or Preordain. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of brewing space going on at the moment. Even like all 3 of these mono blue terror lists are different.
Yeah.
And like considerably different.
Wonder what Sleep of the Dead's for.
Weird sideboard card in mono blue terror.
Yeah.
Heroic. That well played deck.
Yeah. I don't know.
I guess it also shuts down like big Riven Chrysalis or Brood Skills for like a turn. But obviously it's sorcery, so you have to do it the turn before they go off. But you can basically permanently keep a guy locked down in this type of deck because it's with the escape.
Yeah.
Interesting choice.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, just another thing to add interest to. Yeah, definitely. This top 8 looks very interesting. Obviously, we've got the the 2 Turbo Fogs in the top 10. Great choice, great meta call. A lot of mono blue terror again. I'm assuming very good meta call. Very little mono white, even though it was the most played deck.
Yeah.
On the Saturday,
didn't convert at all.
The joint 2 most played decks were White Weenie and Brood Scale combo. So.
To be fair, both of which just didn't convert.
Yeah.
So definitely hated out from the Friday results.
Which is pretty interesting and cool to see that. As I say, like you've got this like rotating meta game where you just see what lines up very nice, and it makes for like such a really healthy meta game. It really does at the moment, definitely for sure. Want to move on?
Yeah. So on the Saturday there was also a showcase qualifier, which was a smaller event, but figured it was worth covering. There was 29 players. 1st place was Blue Red Scred. 2nd place was Grixis Affinity. 3rd and 4th were both Kuldotha. 5th was Broodscale. 6th was FAMS. 7th was Turbofog. And 8th was Jund Broodscale. And then the 2 near misses. 9th was the Mono Red Blitz deck. And 10th was Cycle Storm. So although a smaller event, still completely different to the two events we've just covered. So basically had three completely different top tens in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, big shout out to Spock, who is just the blue red master. No one seems to be on blue red at all, but he still just rocks up and crushes everyone with it.
Mm. Yeah, I think the good thing the thing that I find really good and interesting about Spock and his list with blue red, very much. I remember he put a thread up basically how he'd like cut Augur from his previous his post Modern Horizons 3 list because of different reasons of why it's just a bad card early and it just doesn't line up well in like post Modern Horizons 3 meta, and it just shows that like to me that like no card is fixed for him. Like,
yeah,
do you know what I mean? And he understands his deck so wholeheartedly that he literally knows what's bad, what's not working, and like the lists evolve. Like this is pretty different, obviously, how it was pre Modern Horizons, and is still crushing with it. Yeah, definitely a good deck. Definitely lines up really well. And yeah, just can't really go wrong.
Yeah, alongside that, a good show from Kuldotha that we basically have seen not present in the previous two results. Could be because it's a smaller field. But yeah, they're basically just sort of stock Kuldotha list. They've got a couple Goblin Grenades in for some spice. And it seems like Seal the Fire is now back in favour, along with the Blast Runner. The Reckless, what's he called? Reckless guy?
Reckless Lackey.
Has definitely seems to have fallen out of favour as he doesn't feature in either of these lists. They're just like sort of pre-Modern Horizons Kuldotha.
Which is great for me, I'm not gonna lie. It's quite interesting to be fair how actually right we are quite a lot of the time. That's the thing I've noticed. You say Sneaky Snacker shouldn't be in Affinity. A month later, Sneaky Snacker's not in Affinity. I say Reckless Lackey shouldn't be in Mono Red, and here we are, it's not in Mono Red. But I do like Seal of Fire. I do think it's very well positioned, again, in the sort of same vein of All That Glitters metagame. I think it just really works out well, especially against Brood Scale, and it's just not a bad card.
Yeah.
So
yeah, the Brood Scale matchup definitely seems like the place where this shines. But it's also just a solid card, like you say, against all the creature decks at the moment, like White Weenie and such. It's good, and then it's also you've just still got that burn potential just to go first.
Yeah, 100%.
I even think both these lists are exactly the same, so I'm not sure if these two players like spoke to each other about this before the event, but it's interesting that they're both identical lists.
Oh yeah. With all the 16 goblins in the deck, because Voldaren Epicure is definitely a goblin. It's more a goblin than a vampire. Yeah, I guess the other thing, looking at the green black Brood Skill deck, it looks like it's more of.
It's different
like,
to them both. It's closer to the Rubble Belt Maverick list.
I was literally like, oh yeah, it just looks like Campo's list. I'm like, oh wait, no, it's not. It's it's very different.
Yeah, there's only 12 creatures in this one, so basically a middle ground. Slightly more artifacts than Campo's, slightly less than the other list. It's just basically bang in the middle of those two.
Yeah. I do like the Evolution Witness with the implement. Still a solid one. And then obviously they've split the Chromatic Star as well. So they do have the other oh my god. They have the other combo to draw their deck while they're comboing off with Evolution Witness and a second Sadistically. Always good to see. Rubber Belt's shone for me as well while playing this deck. I really do like that card in these sort of lists as well. So
yeah, I've been quite impressed with it being in Dredge, but it definitely looks like it would shine here. Just being able to get your value off the Seville, dispute it away basically for free, like you don't care about it at all, and then have its value out of the yard as well. To start off your combo cheaper, or to like restart 11 Evolution Witness. Very, very cheap. Just seems really good.
100%. Yeah, I do like these lists. I like how different they all are. And the one thing that I haven't seen in lists, but I've seen in this one was Nature's Claim, which was a
Mm.
pretty interesting one, I guess. Which is really, I find it strange, but also makes sense. It's very much like you don't really care about the life gain. You're gonna combo off and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
then your backup plan's very much like I'm gonna attack you. So
yeah. But
it's
you're probably gonna attack for more than that's relevant.
yeah,
Like even if you're not comboing off, you do tend to go pretty big. With obviously all the adapts and the like
yeah,
random rubble belt mavericks and stuff like that.
yeah. That's fair. But yeah, pretty cool to see. And also a very clean looking mana base as well for this list.
Yeah,
Um, literally just 2 bridges, 8
and
forest,
one
9 swamp,
tree.
and 1 tree of tails. Yeah, a pretty sweet list.
Hmm.
Um,
Any other comments on the showcase qualifying?
apart from the 8th place Jund version, looks very much stock. Apart from a slippery cast in the main,
Hmm.
the green cycle land, but and the Dark Dweller Oracle, which seems like a really big addition to the deck. To be fair, especially with 3 chromatic stars, you've got the sort of Mogwarts Wincon, but you have no Goblin Matron to find it. Pretty interesting. But yeah, that's it. That's it from me.
So moving on to our last challenge, which was a Sunday 64. 75 players, so a decent turnout. First place was Grixis Affinity. Second place was Elves. Third was White Weenie. Fourth was Grixis Affinity. Fifth was Red Green Madness. Sixth was Mono Blue Terror. Seventh was Black Green Gardens. Eighth was Grixis Affinity. And then the two near misses. Ninth was White Weenie. And 10th was Mono Blue Terror. So again, now it feels like Grixis Affinity has the upper hand in this challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Interestingly, the lists were all a bit different. One of them, the first place one, played Snacker, but had cut them down. I think it only runs 3.
Mm-hmm.
The middle one has no Snackers at all. And if I can find the bottom one, only has 2 Snackers. So that everyone's still sort of on the less Snackers is better plan, but just not to the same extent.
Yeah, it's really interesting because the Walker list in 8's also standard staple Walker and is on counterspell as well,
Yeah, yeah.
but then also runs Candy Grapple, which is another spicy card that we haven't really seen that people thought would see more play than it does, which is pretty interesting. But as
Yeah, that's like the Kenku answer, right?
yeah,
The -3, yeah, -3. Yeah, it seems decent with the amount of terror that we've seen
mm,
in the earlier challenges, I suppose.
mm,
Um, although stuff like Kenku isn't seeing that much play. Like even in these Grixis Affinity decks, it's not really present at the moment.
yeah,
So I'm not sure how much better this is than just cast down.
yeah. That's my main thought too. Is that exact thought? Like it does kill quite a lot. Like it kills all the X3s out of White Weenie, um, and it kills the brood skills, all that sort of stuff, all unbargained, which is pretty
Mm,
good. But then I guess it can also draw you a card if you have a Wellspring line around or something. But yeah,
yeah,
it does seem rather strange overall for me. But yeah, all different lists, all pretty interesting. I missed the snacker at the bottom snacker as well. But
yes,
very, very strange lists. The other interesting thing for me is the second place, not only elves, which I'm assuming you want to cover, but
yeah,
I just before you say about elves, the only thing I want to mention is Copper Horn Scout, and then you can just
yeah.
then you can just go on about elves because what the hell?
Yeah, it's a very interesting elves list in general. Like with that aside, obviously it has a random one of Copperhorn Scout. It also runs Rift Sword, which is a card that like I thought would see a bit more playing elves when it was initially spoiled.
Hmm.
Obviously, Pseudo being a 1 mana dog that adds any colour. But yeah, 2 copies of Rift Sword here. One Vine Shaper Prodigy, which again was also a card that people were dead hyped on when it was spoiled, but just never really got there. And a one of Rubble Fort as well, which sort of fades in and out of popularity.
Hmm.
But yeah, it just seems like a really cool elves list. Like the main core of elves is still there, with the 6 mana dogs, the elvish vanguards, the Quirians, the priests, and the Timberwatch. But then they've just played around a lot with the filler, which is interesting to see.
Yeah, it definitely is a spicy list. Obviously, even the like one-off spell, you've got a one-off spell pierce.
Yeah.
As well, which is pretty interesting. Along with the 11 draw spells of Wind and Wail, Lead, and Distant Melody, which I still don't even think that's normal. Like, I don't know if 4-4-3 is the normal split. I can't say I'm a elves aficionado.
If you're gonna play the melody, it does tend to go that way.
Um,
But yeah, it's a sweet one. Like the Copperhorn Scout, it's got a very high ceiling. Like it's in general, it's pretty bad. Like if you just casting it by itself, it's really bad. But when you're combining it with like Timberwatch Elf and Priest of Titanium, things like that, it just gets a bit bananas. It's like sort of a second Quirion Ranger, but it can just untap all of them at once.
yeah, it's like a big Quirion.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's a weird one. I guess it gets a lot better if you think it can attack in multiple times without getting blocked, like early game. So like if you play it on 1 or 2 and like get it early untap on some of your mana dogs for free, it seems like it would really perform well there. And then obviously it's got the late game potential of just pump your guy, attack, untap, pump your guy. But it's also just a 1-mana 1/1 that essentially does nothing.
Yeah. But then it also gets quite interesting as well to me with you've got Tuk Tuk as well, which gives all you guys haste, so you can sort of like just start splurging. Then you just attack with it, untap everything, carry on casting a bunch of spells. But then you also have got Rift Sower as well, which sort of it comes in with haste off the suspend, so you can sort of like again like a really low ceiling with Birch Law as well. You've got those sort of things that have pseudo haste. So it is interesting, but I just don't know how good it actually is.
Yeah, it's a sweet one. And then the Rift, so obviously its main use is just additional coloured sources.
Yeah.
Obviously on these melodies, you're on the Tuk Tuk Rubble Fort, you've got the Vine Shaper, and the sideboard as well is pretty colour intensive. There's quite a few blue and red cards. And Rift sort of seems like the best option for just, I've already got 4 Birch Laws, I've already got 4 Jesper Sentinels. What else to kind of add any colour with it that's an elf? Obviously it's still low cost. It's obviously 1 mana a lot of the time. But yeah, it's a cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Really cool list, and yeah, like you say, it's good to see elves just out of nowhere be like, right, you forgot about me now. I'm gonna smash this tournament.
Yeah, exactly. What else would you like to talk on before we talk about the obvious elephant in the room?
Yeah, I think in general, it just sort of this final challenge displays how good a week it's been for White Weenie and Mono Blue Terror in particular. I guess as well as Grixis Affinity. Grixis Affinity deserves to be in there as well. Those 3 decks seem to have performed by far above everything else. Yeah, even like the challenge that White Weenie wasn't in the top 10, there was a bunch of Mono Blue Terror. And then, yeah, it just seems like a really good week for those 3 decks.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to include Gardens on that as well. That's had a generally an okay challenge like week as well.
I think Gardens is definitely it's in that sort of argument. It's definitely the 4th out of those 3. But yeah, it's definitely had decent showings. The Saturday really boosted it. With the like double and then 1 in 9th as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely not a bad place to be on Gardens at the moment.
Which is quite interesting to me because I don't know if it was pre-Modern Horizons or just before Modern Horizons 3 came out. Like Gardens was in a pretty poor place and it just sort of like fell off the map. But again, so was a lot of the decks that are now, I would say, really good, like White Weenie. These were just other choices, and now they're definitely up there with tier 1 decks.
Yeah.
Which is really cool to
Like
see.
I had White Weenie built for ages, like in paper,
Mm.
and I just never played it because it was just bad. I
Mm.
just built it because I was like, oh, this is it's a cool like it's an old school pauper deck that's sort of still sort of almost playable. Like it'd be nice to have, but now I'm like, I actually want to play a White Weenie.
Mm.
It seems like really good.
Mm. Yeah, 100%. All it takes is one card, I
Yeah,
guess, and a bit of a rework. But other than that, yeah,
yeah,
pretty interesting. So, do you want to touch on the? I mean, what place is it? The
yeah.
fifth place list.
Yeah, go for it.
So first of all, the pilot Floizer is the pilot that made Mono Red Tron as well,
Mm.
which is pretty interesting. Um, I don't. The list in particular, the archetype I would say isn't his exact archetype that happened, which is also another reason why I do try to mention Kalikaiz Trophy Tuesdays, because a guy called, I believe, Cest or Sester trophied with Green Red Madness after a lot of people trophy him with Mono Red Madness, which I don't know if you have seen. I don't know, did I record with that deck or not? But
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
did.
you did. Yeah,
So that deck basically trophied with the Goblin Bushwhacker, the Root Waller, and the Sneaky Snacker sort of general madness engine that we've sort of got now. And then Cest basically put in the green cards, or the green sideboard cards, I guess, and the green red lands. But then also
mm.
Floyes sort of took this deck, as he generally does. He takes random decks and just makes them his own. And it's really great to see this list, and also why it also feeds into leagues quite well. But this list in particular is really, really interesting. Um, Firstly, because it's the first time we see the red green ping land, like the crime land or whatever you want to call it. It's also
Yeah,
nice to see, especially in an aggro deck. I also like the fact that they've kept like the red black madnessy um, artifact theme with the Goblin Tomb Raider, which the mono red one didn't. It had Kuldotha and Bushwhacker in. It was more like a Kuldotha deck, but with Rootwaller and Snacker in.
yeah. To be fair, even the black red one has dropped Tomb Raider recently.
Mm.
Like in the most recent lists. But yeah, it's nice to see that come back. It
Yeah,
definitely feels like one of the stronger parts that was or is now missing from the black red version.
yeah. And the other thing that I do like about this deck as well is it sort of keeps the red madness cards in the red black madness, like the Faith Salute and the Highway Robbery, are all really good tools. Where the mono red one sort of had like a lot of cathartic reunions and was really didn't have like Highway Robbery, and cathartic reunion is here as a two of, but when I played it, it almost felt like the worst card in the deck all the time.
Yeah,
And I wouldn't be surprised if moving forward, if Floyd's either cut that completely or went to Demand Answers or something. Because
yeah,
but the actual core shell of 4 Fiery Temper, the Sneaky Snacker, the Root Waller as the sort of madness engine, madness red cards effectively, because the Root Waller and the Sneaky Snacker don't have colours. The pretend red cards. But then also got the Galv Blast and the Lightning Bolt as well. Like I really do like this deck, and I like the fact that green has got a massive push post Modern Horizons 3.
yeah. I think the big standouts for me, firstly, the Rancor, the inclusion of green, mainly for Rancor as one of the main parts. Rancor seems really good in this deck. Like making your sort of like middle of the road little beaters into actual like threats that like if they get chumped, they just smash through, or they trade with something much bigger. Seems really cool. Also, the addition of being able to pump the Root Weller seems huge. Like while watching your Mono Red Madness video, like the biggest thing I thought, well, like every other turn, I was like, if he could pump this Root Weller, this would be so much better. Like he would have good attacks here if he could pump this Root Weller.
100%. Like literally, as soon as that video ended, I was like, I want to make red green, and I was like, oh. And then literally, as I had said that, Callie had linked me a deck for the league, and was like, oh, look, this is just literally 5 odd, and I was like, this was literally in my head. Was like,
Yeah.
I really want all I want to do is pump this Root Waller. That's literally all I want to do.
But yeah, it seems sick. Obviously, four highway robberies, I enjoy a lot. I did think that card was really good, and it's nice to see it just finally as a 4 of in something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would agree that the Cathartic Reunion sort of looks like the most awkward part of the deck. It sort of always looked awkward in that mono red version that you played as well. Demand Answers will probably serve a bit better here.
Yeah, and that's sort of, I think it's a fine card if it's your first one, but it always because it costs 2. Worst of all, like it's never really your first one. You generally are throwing like Epicure or Faithless out there, but then it then gets really awkward. It's like almost really hard to cast after that, I find.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if Demand Answers definitely replaces that. But I really like the fact that whoever invented like this sort of madness shell with Snacker and Rootwaller has sort of just went, Rootwaller's really good when you're trying to ship stuff with Sneaky Snacker, and I'm like, this is great. Like, so the best thing for that is put it in red and green, and I'm like, that is perfect. I really do love that Snacker is basically the best red card out of Modern Horizons 3. Really does amaze me. But deck seems strong. Obviously, as you say, you've got the Rancor, which is a great one, and you've also got the Burn. Like, not only have you got the whole Great Furnace Tomb Raider, you've got the Faithless Looting Snacker Rootwaller, you've then got Rancor on top of that, and then you've got 10 burn spells on top of that. Like, all together seems absolutely great, and I can't wait to actually play this deck, which I haven't got around to doing, but I will be taking the Cathartic Reunions out, because screw that card. But, for sure, deck is sweet. And another thing why I also think, again, why following leagues and challenges at the same time, even though leagues, more people can randomly 5-0 an event and are less relevant in a sense, but also it's cool to see what brews turn into challenge wins. And the same happened with Floyzer again with the Mono Red run. So, wait, see, would you like to move on to the IPT? IPT, is that what it's called? Where's it gone? Oh.
Yes. So there was 55 players at Badger's IPT. First place was Monoblue Ninjas. Second was Mogwarts. Third was Grixis Affinity. Fourth was Red Black Madness. Fifth was Affinity. I'm assuming Grixis Affinity. Sixth was Ponza. Seventh was Cyclestorm. And eighth was another copy of Ponza. And then the 2 near misses. Ninth was Jeskai Ephemerate. And 10th was Jund Broodskill. I think first of all, like 55 players at a paper event is like really cool to see. It's an event that we would have loved to go to, but it's so far away from us. It's basically unreachable.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a really big achievement to have that many players. And it just shows the sort of want for these type of events in the UK. Yeah, really good.
100%. That is definitely a good thing to see, for sure. Do you want to touch on anything in particular, or just go straight to the first place list, start from the top?
Yeah, go for it.
So the winning list was, you heard Reese right, was Mono Blue Ninjas, not Mono Blue Fair, Mono Blue Ninjas. It looks very similar to, if people do follow propaganda, the Brewer Master. It's a Mono Blue deck running Opalman and Thoughtcast along with Smoke Shroud. But then it uses all 12 blue ninjas. It runs 4 Ninja of the Deep Hours, 4 Moonscircle Hacker, and 4 Mistblade Shinobi. Along with a plethora of 0 and 1 mana guys. Basically, it runs 4 Ornithopter, 4 Phyrexian Walker, 4 Wingcrafter, the All-Star, 2 Silver Raven, 4 Network Disruptor, which is the artifact 1/1 flyer for 1 blue that can tap a permanent. And then the card from Outlaws, Thunder Junction, which is effectively a Network Disruptor, but not an artifact. But 3 mana, draw a card, discard a card. And then you've got a 1 of Ginger Brute as well to round that off. It's a 1-2. Oh no, it's a 1/1. So it's definitely a pile of cards.
Yeah.
It's a lot of 1/1 flyers and unblockable and cheap guys, and it's very, very reliant on ninja and ninjas and ninja and stuff. And yeah, I imagine how I imagine this deck, it's probably surprisingly difficult to play because I imagine you probably end up ninjaing more than one guy every time you want a ninja. So like ninjutsuing 2 network disruptors is probably fairly common to get one guy to get into damage to draw a card and all that sort of stuff. Just to start tapping down stuff so your Mistblade Shinobi and your other Moonsaker hackers can attack. It's probably very common. And it's definitely a spicy deck. No removal. You want no counter magic in the main. And you've just got to tap stuff and give stuff flying is basically what you're going to do. And kill them with ninjas.
It's such an odd deck. I'm not even sure like how to really look at it. The weird artifact sub theme to enable 2 thought casts seems really odd. Like I would have thought that it'd be a comparable draw 2 card that you could play.
Yeah.
Instead of thought cast, like playing 4 network disruptors, but only 2 Harrier Strix, when Harrier Strix is essentially just a better version of network disruptor.
Yeah.
Just to try and enable 2 thought casts seems like really odd. Yeah, I don't know. There's so much air in the deck that I imagine you have to just run super hot as well to actually get it to work. Which they went 601, so I guess they ran super hot.
I think the organizer as well said to me that they last time they did a biggish event, they got the top 8 there as well. Yeah. So they've generally
maybe the players just cracked.
Yeah, maybe that's where it is. But also, I've also just realized it's not this. It also isn't the same Shinobi I thought that was. So the 12th ninja is Mistblade Shinobi. I thought it was the one that makes a 1/1.
The bouncy one.
But it's the bouncy one, which I don't even know how I feel about that. I guess it's removal, but sure.
Yeah, it's the ninja that you ninja back for your other ninja.
Yeah.
So you can keep like sneaking him through in different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, very interesting list. I guess you just hope that no one's playing End the Festivities.
Yeah. I guess that's all. But I guess you're very reliant on your Phyrexian Walkers and your Ornithopters at that point. I don't even know.
Yeah.
But there's some really interesting card choices even in the sideboard as well. They're running Campfire, a foil.
As a one-off.
As a one-off. Both as one-offs. Then they're running 2 Hermetic Studies. Which is...
Yeah, with the ping enchantment.
Yeah, the ping enchantment. Which I don't really see because you've got no real ways of untapping, right? Because they all just tap. They don't tap or untap. So, yeah, I have no idea. I don't. There's something like, but then there's the reason I'm saying that's an interesting choice is because there's the witch, right? There's the fairy. Is it like a 3-mana 1/1 flyer or something that taps to deal 1 damage to target creature or player or something like that?
Oh, Thornwind Fairies.
Thornwind Fairies.
Yeah.
That's a thing. Then there's no. Again, another card that I'd thought being there would be the Undying only can be blocked by flyers Spirit, the 3-mana one.
Boundgeist.
Yes, that one. Like, that seems like a good anti-flyers, anti-end the festivities tech, here's my big guy. None of that. Just all-round strange list. Obviously worked out really well. Went 601. Maybe I'm just too small-brained to understand how this deck is actually winning.
I was going to say, I think we're just not big-brained enough for this list.
But it genuinely is just, I'm going to ninja tap some guys, ninja tap some guys, ninja tap, and then hopefully that's enough ninjas to get through. But then you've got no interaction, like, whatsoever. You've got no tricks, almost. Like, it's all sorcery speed tricks. Like, you haven't got the spell stutter sprite sort of, what's the 1/2 called? Why is that name gone? Bryn Barrow? You've got none of that sort of stuff going on, like Mono Blue Fairies does. So it's really interesting that it's done so well, but I guess in a field full of, I'd like to say a field full of Ponza, but like 15% was on Grixis Affinity, 13% was on Ponza, and 10% was on Madness. Like,
yeah, I think a big bonus to this deck, especially in this field, is there's basically no gardens.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like nearly, yeah. I don't think there's a single gardens list in this entire event.
Yeah.
Which is definitely where you want to be with a deck like this. I feel like if gardens is played, it's just an auto lose. With all the rats and the like pinpoint removal and just like piles upon piles of pinpoint removal. But yeah, it just seems like a really good call. There's a lot of decks that just don't really interact very well with your creatures. Like Ponza, like other mono blue decks, another Ponza. Like there's a lot of Ponza in the top 16. Yeah, interesting. Even like Mogwarts, like there's no real interaction there. If you can stop them comboing off, you're probably gonna just chip over them.
My other next thing, I guess, is that Crackland Shaman is obviously. Oh my god, this frog will not leave my throat today. The other thing, I guess, is Crackland Shaman from Grixis Affinity is probably a common card where most of this stuff has flying, so it just doesn't really hit. Yeah. Like, it hits the ninjas, obviously, but if you can, your 1/1 flyers will sort of get there. But then my counterpoint to that is looking at these lists. The number 1 most played card in this entire event was Breath Weapon. So
I guess you just dodge it.
Yeah, that's interesting meta call, interesting deck. Do you know what? I'll probably give this a go because this looks wild. I'm all for tapping stuff down and ninjaing and seeing what happens. I'm game. So I'll definitely be trying it and seeing if my opinion changes, but I feel like my opinion is very much, I don't understand this deck enough to how it's done so well. Maybe it's just a great meta call. Yeah.
Just as an aside, it's obviously this events on MTG decks, which I basically never use.
Yeah.
There's a category in this table, like the table obviously shows you the deck list and the rank. It says spiciness, and then it says 1%.
Yeah.
Surely this is like 99% spicy, not 1% spicy.
It's seen Moonsucker, Hacker, and Ninja of the Deep Hours and was like, these are commonly played cards. Seen Island.
Like, and then there's a Boros Synth, and it says spiciness 88%. So I'm not sure what's going on there. But yeah, a really interesting deck, like something that, again, we just haven't seen before. And it just shows how open Pauper is. If you know your deck and you know the meta, and you can predict what's going to be played, you can win basically any event you want.
For sure. I guess just quickly moving down the lists, I'm fine with the Mogwarts deck. Looks fairly-ish stock. The main thing is, as expected, with Ponza being everywhere, they've cut the tramways and went to Dross Forge Bridge. Makes sense, really.
Makes sense.
Other than that, they've added an Eviscerator's Insight, which is fairly stock now, and still on Pilferers, which I'm surprised at, to be honest, because there's not much mono red, so you don't need to go super duper fast. But yeah, seems fine. Sweet deck.
Yeah. There's nothing like particularly stand out aside from that ninjas really. It's all sort of stuff you'd expect. The Cycle Storm, I guess, is another interesting one. Definitely benefited from the just like massive lack of blue decks. It's not there's nothing particularly new about the list. I don't think, not that I can see.
No,
it seems fairly stock.
It's not the Tyrube version though. It's the red black version.
The red black version. Yeah.
Which basically runs Vault. For those that don't know, it runs the artifact lands. It runs Great Furnace, Vault of Whispers, and then Barren Moors is the only lands with petals. And then it tries to sort of deadly dispute its way through the deck as well, as like another subpar thing. It's a lot easier to play if you are a Cycle Storm or want to get into Cycle Storm. It's a lot easier to play than Tyrube's list, just for reference. Mainly because it runs Ingot Tutor in the side and not Vision Charm.
But yeah, it looks like a really cool event overall. And hopefully they run more, and hopefully other places get the opportunity to run them as well.
Yeah. Whoa, that is spicy. Final spicy point. The was it the third place Grixis Affinity list? Not only is on Snacker, so that's a boo hiss, right? But runs an Echo and Return in their
To return your snackers so you can hard cast them again.
no, it's
I
so
guess.
so you can return all 4 refurb familiars and rip your opponent's hand apart. That's the obvious reason.
There's also like a random campfire in the main.
Yeah, gotta go campfire.
It seems a very odd choice in this matter of Ponza.
Yeah, campfire's inclusion definitely seems an odd choice overall with no real blue decks, for sure. But yeah, pretty sweet deck, pretty sweet lists to be fair all around. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. That's all I got.
Moving on to our hot takes.
Yes.
So obviously hot takes from last week. There wasn't really any. We had one before we left, which was we'll have deck lists back. We do have deck lists back. They're only top 32s, but we at least have them.
Woo!
So hot take from next week. I guess I'll do both mine together because they're sort of like tied to each other. My first one is that White Weenie will have another good showing next week, and featuring all 3 of the top 10s. But to counteract that, I guess my second one is that Mono Blue Terror, or Terror in general, will be hated out next week, only appearing in 1 or less of the top 10s. So I guess arguably 2 of the best decks, including like as well as Grixis Affinity, but going 2 different directions.
I guess that sort of follows on from my first hot take, is that Gardens will end up being the most played deck. Basically to fight the current field. I think it can be made to sort of have a fighting chance against Mono Red, White Weenie, Grixis Affinity, and then obviously has a generally good Mono Blue Terror matchup and a Brood Scale matchup. Looking at the data going throughout the week, it gradually does seem to go up. Like the Friday had 5 pilots all the way up to being the 8 pilot, like joint 3rd most played deck on the Sunday. So I wouldn't be surprised if that is the theme moving forward. And then finally, my last hot take is that Corgate will take an uptick. Basically, now that Ponza's sort of depleting, I wouldn't be surprised if Corgate made a return.
It definitely has some devoted fans, so yeah, I wouldn't be surprised in that. So
yeah, I'm pretty sad. I'm pretty sad about that, to be fair, because it's been refreshing.
Sad but not surprising.
Yes, exactly. Would you like to add anything else?
No, that's it from me.
So guys, thank you all for listening. It has been a slightly longer one because A, I will not shut the hell up, but B, we've had a lot more to cover, to be fair. And we're back. We're all getting back in the groove of things, you know? That's all it is. We need to be, you know, I don't know, looser. More
limbered up.
Limbered up, that's what it is. So guys, thank you all for listening. If you have enjoyed this podcast, please do not forget to share it with your friends, your family, your local pauper community, even your cough doctor. Because it will not go. Anyways, guys, that is all from us at Casting Commons. Until next time, and do not forget to stay hydrated. Peace!
Bye.